All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. My name's Robert Jadon. I'm one of the co-founders of Startup UCLA, and we're here tonight to tell you a little bit about the Summer Accelerator, give you an overview of what we do with the program, who's involved, what it looks like week to week, and then hopefully answer some of your questions that you might have about the program, what you're doing, all of those good things. So we'll go ahead and just jump into it right here. All right, so in terms of the agenda, so first we're going to cover just what exactly is Startup UCLA, what kind of things do we offer, and generically how you can connect with us, whether it's Summer Accelerator or other times throughout the year. We're also going to kind of give you what I term as a week in the life, which is essentially just to kind of show you what does it actually look like when you're in the Summer Accelerator program. Then we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive on the actual program itself and the things that are included. And then we'll run through a couple of past participant examples so that you can kind of see it from a couple different perspectives. And then we'll finish up with some Q&A. So hopefully you'll get the information you need tonight. So a little bit about the Startup UCLA team. So myself, I am a Bruin alum. I graduated as an econ major and ended up going off and being involved with a couple of different companies. I've sold a couple of businesses, been on the investor side, and been involved with multiple accelerators. So, you're going to be able to leverage a lot of my background in the private venture community, the startup community, and whatnot, and hopefully give you, some good advice, some answers, some connections that have been built up in what is going to be our 10th year doing the Summer Accelerator program. Joining me on the team is Deanna Evans, our executive director, who oversees not only the Summer Accelerator program, but also the Blackstone Launchpad program, as well as the Faculty Innovation Fellows. Glenn Tres-Thornton, our assistant director and entrepreneur in residence, who will also be working with you guys day to day in this accelerator, has worked with multiple groups, including our faculty group. And Rachel, who is joining us recently, who comes from more of a social background in terms of working with social ventures. And I'm excited to have this whole team together to work with you, and Jaime, who's overseeing the entire program on an administrative level and also works with some of our social ventures. The main thing I think that I want you to take away from our group is that we're experienced. We've worked with a number of different companies, and we're here to help. So hopefully, we've been able to do a lot of work with a lot of different kinds of companies, and hopefully that will show through. It's not just us though directly with the people that are involved. We also have a very robust alumni network, as well as a bunch of advisors and mentors. So the group itself has been cultivated, like I said, for about 10 years. Hopefully, we'll kind of see that. And also, a couple of partners that I wanted to mention are some of our sponsors, which include Fenwick & West, a top technology law firm. They have offices down here in LA, in Santa Monica, but also in Silicon Valley, and really focused on tech and are a great asset for our teams. And Lightspeed Ventures, who's a prominent Silicon Valley venture fund, who's funded companies like Snapchat, Honest Company, and a number of others. And so you're really going to be working with a great group of people, and we hope you're excited about it. So a little bit of background on the history of the program itself. So the Summer Accelerator was sort of the first program that got everything started. And as I said, we've been doing it for a number of years every summer. And, it's basically been the basis for, how we got going. Over time, though, we essentially thought about how programming could occur year round. And that was sort of how we ended up getting partnered with Blackstone on what's known as the Launchpad program. And hopefully many of you in the audience have already had an opportunity to connect with some venture consulting work that we do. If you haven't, I totally encourage you to do that. There'll be opportunities, that I'll get to later in the presentation to show you where to do that. But essentially, any idea you have, no matter how early it is, we're here to help. We want to see what we can do to be helpful on any of those kinds of things. And it was a great complement to some of the stuff we were doing with the accelerator, but allowed us to do things year round. We've also expanded into what's known as the Faculty Innovation Fellows Program. So this sort of took our work beyond student and alumni into the faculty and staff realm, and we're currently in progress with our third group there. So really have sort of a wide array of groups that we serve with Startup UCLA. So I thought this would be helpful is to show you just what exactly does a week in the life of the Summer Accelerator look like. So when we talk about the Summer Accelerator, there's the idea that you're sort of pursuing your venture full time, and that you're dedicating the majority of your time and effort to the venture. And from that perspective, we want you to be focused on your own work. So it's not the program itself is not designed to completely replace what you're doing. It's not, a summer class, where you're going to be coming in a couple of days a week. Your job is really to further your business, and we're there to give you the best chance for success in doing that. So, so the bulk of your time is sort of working on your business throughout the day. What would you be doing if we weren't involved? Hopefully, you'd be going after it and doing everything you can. But the ways that we're involved are that we have a weekly sync every Monday. So you connect with our team. And when we were in person, we had a co-working space available, but now we're doing everything remotely with Zoom. On Tuesday nights, generically, we have what we call our speaker series. So these are entrepreneurs, investors coming back, telling their stories, and you get a chance to connect with them individually, which is a really unique opportunity. We've had all kinds of different speakers over time, which included people like Brian Lee, the founder of The Honest Company. We had Jesse Draper, who's a prominent VC here in Los Angeles. So all different great kinds of people who come in. You'll get to actually talk to them about your venture, and then we also do a fireside chat. The skills series is sort of meant to complement what the speaker series does, but giving you some harder skills in what we're providing. So think about, how are you going to incorporate? How do you deal with partnership issues? How will you deal with customer development, things of that nature? And so it can be workshop oriented. There's a couple different directions it goes, but ultimately you're thinking about more tangible skills and things that you're going to be taking away. And then finally, and this isn't like every week where we have something, but there are opportunities for social things that may happen. And some of these have been virtual, and we've been trying to evolve that throughout time. But anyway, you can kind of think of it that a lot of times your night is occupied with a lot of things Startup UCLA related. A lot of the day we try to keep free. But that being said, I put these purple boxes up there because we do have things that pop up throughout the week, and those can be a mentor drop-in, or doing sort of a virtual session. It can be connecting with one of our sponsors like, Amazon Web Services, who's going to provide credits to you. So just know that there's other things that sort of happen throughout the week, but hopefully this gives you an idea of how you're going to be spending your time. So in terms of a program overview, it's 10 weeks, and it begins right after 4th of July. I think we're going to be starting on Tuesday, which is the 6th this year. But just know, basically, once we get going, it's pretty robust. There's a lot of things going on. It moves quickly, and we do expect your dedication. There's a $5,000 stipend, and basically this is for you to use to sort of cover living expenses. If you want to put it to work in your company. But the big thing about it is that there's no equity taken. So we're not investors. We think of Startup UCLA as being on an educational mission to help you and further, your entrepreneurship skills. And so that's core to what we do. So we don't take equity. You're going to be getting those talks from top entrepreneurs, like I mentioned, investors, subject matter experts. You're going to meet some amazing people in this program. And not only that, but you're also going to be meeting all the other teams that are in the program. So you're going to find a lot of like-minded people that you're going to be able to connect with. There's also our Startup UCLA team, who I covered earlier. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we also track sort of your weekly progress, and that is kind of core to how we do our weekly meetings. So just know every week, no matter what happens or whatever, you're going to reconnect with us the following week. We're going to see how things are going, talk about the week ahead, and hopefully figure out ways that we can be helpful. You'll get legal guidance and office hours from Fenwick and West. So like I mentioned, top law firm in the technology space. So a really amazing resource. So for some people, maybe you haven't thought about anything related to forming an entity or what you're going to do. Others of you may be much further along. You have issues about patents, or you might have a third founder that you have an issue with, and you're wondering what to do. So all of that also comes with the program. As I mentioned briefly before, there's credits for services like Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Airtable, and others. And there's also a mentor night where we sort of do of it almost like a speed dating approach, where you're going to connect with a whole bunch of people. We do it with sort of Zoom breakout rooms now. We used to do it in person, but a great way to sort of get some one-on-one time or group time with some really helpful people who really are invested in what you want, where you're going. And then we have a demo day, which is a great way to sort of celebrate what happened during the program. We do it, sort of in a Zoom broadcast format. It's open to anybody, and we have hundreds of people who usually join for that, and we make it available afterwards. So it's a great way to kind of get some exposure. It can help with business development, customers, users, investors, and just a great way, like I said, to kind of get the word out about what you're doing. So I had headings here on the top when I initially put this presentation together, but I just wanted to reinforce this area where you can find all kinds of information about what we're doing. So our website is startupucla.com, and our application is startupucla.com/apply. So all these things that you see up here in smaller text, you can find on the website, but I just wanted to make sure we went through them with you here. So the first thing is, what's the application deadline? So April 4th, it's actually Easter Sunday, if that's a deadline or something that'll resonate with you guys. So, it's a little bit of ways away. And we are going to have the option of meeting with myself to do some office hours, other people from our team, and so we want to meet and connect with you before the deadline. So, so just know that's part of the process. We do basically require that, and the more we know about you, the better. So, so I really would encourage you to sign up for those office hours when we get the link going. You are going to come and you're going to pitch virtually to us. And so we go through that process. We sort of narrow down our list to about, I'd say about 25 teams. And then we distill it down to about 8 to 10-ish that end up being in the actual program. Acceptances come in mid-May. And then, like I said, July 6th, we're off and running, and the program ends in mid-September. These responsibilities are on the website, but in the interest of sort of trying to answer a couple of questions ahead of time, and things that we tend to see asked over and over in these types of events. So I think a couple of things just worth highlighting. They're obviously all here and they're all on the website. Is that there is an orientation that comes, and you're going to learn more about that if you're selected to be in the program, which is in June. And these things are essentially required. As I mentioned before, we're looking for people who want to do this full time. So if you are somebody who has like a full-time serious internship, or you're working somewhere else, this may not be the program for you. We'd still love to connect. And as we mentioned, the idea that you can meet with someone to do venture consulting is always an option. And we'd love to hear about what you're doing, how we can be helpful. But this program is sort of designed for people who are fairly serious about what they're doing and want to dedicate a significant amount of time to it. We also do want to mention, the events that we have up there, those are essentially mandatory. So when I went through that weekly schedule, we're expecting you to show up. These aren't optional things where, oh, hey, I can make it if I get there. You're expected to be there for all of those, including mentor night, demo day, things of that nature. So hopefully these things are pretty straightforward, but Like I said, we wanted to mention them ahead of time. In terms of the qualifications, so we want the teams to have at least 50% of the team or the equity in current UCLA students or recent alumni. And like another example might be that you have a UCLA affiliation, but you can't quite work on this full time. And your friend who goes to Cornell, they're going to go and she's going to be doing it full time, and you're going to partially be doing it. And that's not a scenario that we're really here to support. This is really to sort of, benefit UCLA students and alumni. And so we just want to sort of clarify some of that ahead of time. Another thing that is mentioned is being in the product stage. And this idea of a prototype and what you've developed can vary quite a bit. And a lot of times people are trying to get answers from us on just what exactly we're looking for. And it does vary quite a bit because there's different companies. Someone might be making a physical product. Someone might be doing some software. And so there's not necessarily a strict set of requirements, but we do love to see that you've done some customer development, that you've gone out and sort of figured out, you've talked to people, you've formulated it, you sort of have an opinion on things, and that you've actually, figured out from a team perspective how you're going to be able to execute this plan. So if you come to me and say, our whole thing is around AI and machine learning, but I'm the business person and I have no people who understand anything about AI on our team, then that's not going to be a good fit. So, PowerPoints look great, and I know they can get very flashy, but we do need to know that you have the team members, maybe yourself, who can execute this vision and bring it to life. And so in conjunction with evaluating where your product stage is, we're also evaluating the team to see if you sort of have the necessary qualifications to do that. Passion and dedication go a really long way. So if you are really excited about it, you're meeting with us all the time, you're really going that extra mile, it's definitely a program where the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. So we love seeing those kinds of early indicators with people. And then the other big thing is just kind of being upfront and communicating, because as long as we're on the same page, things are going to go really smoothly. When we get out of sync on that, that's when there can be issues. But anyway, as I said, this is all on the website, but it's important enough that we decided to throw it into the presentation here. So I threw up a couple examples here of past participants, and I'm going to just sort of go through them one by one. And I think hopefully this might resonate with one of you out there. You might resonate with one of these sort of personas. But I thought it was worth mentioning because we get kind of questions of like, is this for me, or is this where I should be? And so thought this might be helpful. So the first one is Nish, and Nish is an undergrad who is between his second and third year and has worked on a website on the side and is wondering if this is something he can do during the summer in between schools and or school years. And that is definitely the case. So it's not like, you have to be so far along in school where, you feel like you've hit a certain point. We've had people who participate right after their freshman year at UCLA, all the way up to, much further and later on in life. And so just know we've had success stories that come out of like exactly that situation, where people literally started something in their dorm room, have gone off and had great success with that. So just know it can be undergraduate, graduate, or alumni, but the Summer Accelerator is not focused on faculty and staff. We have a separate program for that called the Faculty Innovation Fellows. So I do want to be clear about that distinction. Our next example is Jamika, who was a recent grad, literally just finishing school, working on, a facial care line. And, Jamika was kind of like, is this the time for me to go off and pursue this, kind of full time? Instead of getting a job, I'm going to go after, this venture. And that's another very common jumping off point that we see with a lot of participants is that, they've kind of had something bubbling up while they're in school. And now it's like this decision of, should I do it or not? And we find that the Summer Accelerator can be a great bridge from someone who's kind of thinking, can I make this startup my career or not? And so definitely can be a good fit. It could be at the end of undergrad, it could be at the end of graduate school, PhD, whatever it might be that you're at. But that's definitely another very common time frame that we see people get involved with the Summer Accelerator. My third example here is Mike. Mike's an Anderson student getting his MBA. From the beginning, Startup UCLA has always supported every single part of campus. So whether it's undergraduate, graduate, alumni, we've had people from so many different parts of campus, and definitely multiple times we've supported people from Anderson. So just know it's definitely a viable path. We've worked with those people for a number of years, going all the way back to our first year. This example of Mike, he was actually in our very first program, and had a successful venture that ended up getting funded by a group here in LA called Amplify, and then was acquired. So we do work well with those groups, our entrepreneurs from Anderson, and can work sort of in conjunction with other entrepreneurial programs that you may be pursuing with your MBA. Finally, Medi's an example of a grad student outside of Anderson. So we see a number of people who are sort of getting an advanced degree in another field. This could be something specific like medicine or dentistry, or it could be something like you're getting a PhD in political science, which we've also had a team that had 2 of those, or getting a graduate degree in engineering. Just know we've supported people while they're actually getting their graduate degree, as well as afterwards. So that's another quite common example for us, that we thought was worth mentioning and pointing out. So anyway, I know that this when I do these, it feels like I am just talking and talking and talking, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of an overview of where things are at. We're super excited to be doing this accelerator for the 10th year. And I think it's really going to be a wonderful thing. And it's also our second time doing it as a virtual version. So we learned a lot last year. We are always trying to improve and take those learnings. And so we're excited about what we're going to bring to the table for you guys this year. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A. And actually, first, if there's anything, Deanna, Glenn, Trez, that you think I missed or would be helpful, feel free. Otherwise, we can jump into questions right now. So.
I don't have anything at the moment, but we have been getting some questions in the chat.
Okay.
And so, a few things that people are asking are, where will this be posted? And we'll have it on our Startup UCLA YouTube channel. If you want to review this, an email will go out to everybody. Robert, someone was asking about, having a full-time job while doing the program. If you could speak to that, that would be great. And then regarding another question was, how can you set up a meeting? And everyone who's in the room today will get sent the link to set up an appointment with Robert or with Glenn Trez, myself and Rachel to discuss more. So I'll turn it over to you, Robert, for the question about the full-time job.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, if you're at the point of saying, hey, I have a full-time job and I'm kind of debating pursuing something on the side, or maybe you already have it going, we'd still love to meet with you. But our generic sort of stance on that is that the Summer Accelerator Program is probably not the fit for you in that regard, because essentially we're expecting a full-time commitment, and if you're working full-time somewhere else, it just doesn't seem like that's going to be able to work out. The other reason for it is that if you are looking to get any kind of investment for your company, it's essentially a deal breaker for people who have a full-time job somewhere and are saying, I'd like to receive investment in this company. So, but we have helped a ton of people who have sort of been debating to make that switch or, figure out a side gig or side hustle. So I would really recommend for you to connect with our Blackstone Launchpad program on that, because we do want to be of service to you however possible. But really, it's one of those things where the Summer Accelerator is sort of like when you're ready to do it full time, and and we find that gets the best results. All right, I can jump into. So yeah, and I see the comment where you're saying it's about leaving a job. Totally, and I think that that's one of the things of like, especially when people, it's sort of like, do I want to make this jump or this leap? Like a lot of times what I'll tell people is that if you're going to be joining a startup, you should have 1 year's worth of living expenses set aside so that you can go pursue it full time. And so if for whatever reason, like you can't do that or whatnot, then I wouldn't recommend quitting your job and doing it, because, most likely, these businesses, they take time to scale up, get customers, whatever that may be. And even whether throwing investment to the side, just knowing that you want to have something that's sustainable. You don't want to have that huge added pressure of like, oh my God, how am I going to make my rent? So I think it's one of those things of like, like a lot of times I actually recommend people kind of do stuff on the side to kind of get it going, to test ideas, and use that as, a point for you to validate whether you actually want to make that leap. But for sure, if you put yourself in a tough situation financially, then it's going to, really compound things and be very, very stressful.
Hey, Robert, can you go ahead and stop sharing?
Yeah. Let me do that.
And, I know you guys are doing great with the chat, but I'd love to have you also, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Okay, can I ask a question? Okay. So thank you, Robert, for for the presentation. I'm really interested in this program. Now, I'm just wondering, you mentioned a little bit about having a team, together. Right now, I'm a one-person team. So is there like any advice you would give to seek out other like team members while leading up to the program?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. We have worked with single team members, single team companies before, but I think the way I would think about it is try to hone in on what your strengths are and where you think you need help or what could be complementary, and then sort of use that as a lens on how to figure out who to reach out to and who could be helpful. And speaking of like side gigs and little projects that we were just talking about, that's a great way to kind of figure out, like, are you compatible working with somebody? So you're kind of like, okay, great. Like I have this little thing, let's work on this together. Let's see if we can kind of get it going. And sometimes that not only validates whether the other person has the skills, but then also, do you guys have personalities that are going to mesh working together? The other potential way to kind of expand the team is to look at having some advisors involved and figuring out, if there's maybe some distinguished people you can bring to the table, or industry leaders, or someone from academia who has a deep background on it, because that will help with credibility and positioning. So yeah, but yeah. And I guess the final thing on that, and this is just more generic advice, not just for the accelerator, is that it can be really hard doing the startup on your own. And so kind of getting up day to day, motivating, like something really bad happens, you're kind of like, who do I talk to about this? And so just knowing that you've got that other person to kind of motivate you, but then also to be a sounding board on a lot of issues, tends to lead to better results that we've seen. And the other the other thing that tends to happen a lot is that a lot of the teams that have multiple co-founders, they lose one of them. So, they go through it and things happen. And so that's also quite common as well. And there's ways to protect you so that, it's not like you lose half the company because the person worked, for 2 months with you. So anyway, but yeah, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Robert. I have a question, which is, Is a business model something we already need to have set up? Like, do we need revenue going, or can we just come in and then help get that set up along the way?
No, yeah, you definitely don't have to have the business model set up. It depends on like what kind of business you're doing, and like it may not make any sense for you to have a business model. And when I mean that is not that you haven't thought about it, but if you're doing a completely consumer oriented play, then we're probably going to be trying to strategize on how we get engagement and sort of prioritize that really over any business model. If you're a SaaS B2B play, then understanding where you are in the value chain and how much we can charge and those kinds of things. But we definitely don't expect you to have it all figured out. But that being said, some companies will be further along than others, and that's just part of it. Like you could be, kind of thinking like, okay, I just launched this product and it was on Product Hunt and we're getting some feedback on it and whatever. And then you might be next to somebody who, is already doing a few $1,000s a month of revenue in an e-commerce thing, or maybe even a few $100,000. So, so those, it's kind of a spectrum. And because it's not really like a class, people are all starting at different points, but that's also one of the things that's kind of cool, because it's like you can learn from other people or you can help others, in that regard. And we find that to be really helpful overall.
Great, thanks. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
I think somebody had a question about how do you evaluate the quality of projects? Is it based on, I don't think you answered this, but is it based on user impact, potential financial profits and all that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that we'll evaluate it. Like first, I guess I would say is that like, how passionate are you about this? Like, are you excited? Do you light up when you're telling us about it? One of the things in the application is a video. And so, not only before we had to stop doing in-person things, but even just, we wanted to kind of see how do people, differ from just reading all this text about what they put on there. And passion and determination go a really long way. I think other things that we really tend to look at are the team and figuring out who's involved. Are you the team to make this happen? Do you have the pieces in place? If not, do you have a plan for getting them? The other things that also stand out with early stage ventures tend to be stuff around customer development. So have you talked to a bunch of people? Like, are you clear on what the problem is? Do you understand what are the steps that are needed from that customer to give them what they want? Or have you just talked to 50 people who love, I don't know, virtual networking events, and you feel like you've got the next version of that that's going to be amazing because, you've got all this feedback and you're ready to go. So those are a couple of things. And then, on a super high level, but I would say, maybe secondary to some of the other things we talked about, would be things around technology, market size, and then traction. So, so it's like if maybe you've launched and things are going really, really well, that can offset a lot of other things too. So yeah, but we try to take a really holistic approach to things. And we spend a good amount of time going through every application. I'm just reading a thing here. Is it open to international UCLA alumni? I don't see why not. I don't think we've had any directly participating. I guess I'm going to take that as questions is that you're actually located somewhere overseas, like not in the United States currently. And so, yeah. So, I mean, I think the big thing is just making sure that scheduling kind of works and that it can actually function in that regard. Sorry, Deanna, do you have something to say?
I do. So the only sort of tricky part about that is if you are, in another country, there may be some we need to figure out how to pay you the $5,000 is basically it. it's been very easy with everyone being domestic. Even when international students are at UCLA, we have a mechanism through the university to do it as a student. I'm not quite sure about what that mechanism will be for alumni, but I wouldn't let it discourage you from applying, because we're always trying to figure out workarounds and how to do things. So we're definitely, not scared about trying.
Yeah, and we have had a number of international students, through our history. So so that's definitely been a big part of our program. But as dealing with the pandemic has a little more complexity at times.
Now, there was a question about having some type of event where we can where you guys can combine forces with other people who are on one-person teams. We have in the past, when we were in person, we had done some mixer type things. It has been more challenging now with COVID to do that. So I would recommend that, if you schedule a venture consulting meeting, if there's certain gaps in your team, you might want to talk to the venture consultant about, what your needs are. We may be able to introduce you. I would also encourage you to connect with the student groups like Bruin Entrepreneurs or Startup Labs. Potentially, there may be some students in those programs who could join your team.
And to piggyback on what I think Deanna gave was great advice is also don't be afraid. For the most part, there's rare exceptions, but to share what you're working on with other people. So, it may be that person you're talking to knows, like, oh, that's such an interesting thing. I have another friend who works on that and could be really, really helpful. So, another frequent question we get is like, should I talk about my idea? Unless there's some really proprietary IP that you're planning to patent and you haven't done that yet or something along those lines, we almost always recommend that you do sort of float it out there in conversation, get feedback from people, because you're going to learn, you're going to get there a lot faster, and it's almost part of customer development to be able to do that. So, but a side benefit of it is that there could be some serendipitous connection that happens as a result of it, and so we would sort of say, just see, more people you circulate it with, who knows what happens. Okay.
Another thing that I want to mention is that, when we were in person, a big part of the Summer Accelerator was collaborating with the other teams. And we were able to shift with being virtual to having sort of a team interaction and having the teams get to know each other last year. We're going to sort of step that up a little bit more this year, since we are still going to be virtual. And that's also a great way for you to, build your network and extend, your sort of resources beyond your current team. So we do want people who like to meet other people and are willing to talk on Zoom.
Me.
Yeah.
Wait, we could talk about right now? Yeah. I'm
sorry, what's that?
Wait, I thought you opened it up for like anybody that wants to meet other people, like to talk on Zoom. Did I misinterpret? Yeah. Sorry.
I was mentioning that that's actually part of the Summer Accelerator, is that we want the teams to actually interact with each other. But I think we might have a couple more questions coming through.
Okay.
Yeah, so I see there's a question kind of asking about the maybe number of applicants and things of that nature. And so basically, we usually get a whole bunch of applications. We then will sort of distill it down to those who get interviews. And so that's about 25 companies that will get a Zoom interview. And then of those 25, then we distill it down to about 8 to 10 who are actually part of the full-time program. So hopefully that makes sense. And then, do we expect the 2022 Accelerator Program to be in person? You know, I think so. I mean, there was an announcement that fall classes are coming back in some degree. So who knows? But I think, you know, a big thing for us was this was a really great opportunity to figure out how to make things virtual. And I think there's going to be, you know, major components of it that we continue to utilize going forward. And I think it took away the stigma of bringing in speakers virtually as like an example. Like we used to always force people to have to come, and traffic in LA can be a problem. I mean, let alone just only people in LA. And so all those things make sense, you know, so we're, you know, we think there's some good takeaways on things. How many times are you allowed to reapply if you're rejected? As many times as you'd like. I mean, as far as like year to year. So we have had a number of people who they get rejected one year and then they come back the next year and they get accepted. So, you know, so that, yeah, that's actually a fairly common thing. And I think it's part of the thing of like getting in the system, you start to get some feedback, like you start to connect with the team. And, you know, so yeah, so, you know, I don't know if we've had many that go beyond 2 years. I think after 2 years, people have probably moved on to something else or who knows what. But yeah.
Robert, do you want to answer the one on the success rate and of the program? And
Yeah, for sure. Is there a particular success metric you would like answered from the person who asked the question? Otherwise, I'm happy to talk about some of the ways that we look at it.
Yeah, the ways that you look at it would work. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say first and foremost, you know, we are part of UCLA. So we are part of a nonprofit educational institution. And I think that, you know, governs us differently, colors our perspective differently than let's say if we were like a private venture capital fund. So at the heart of what we do with Startup UCLA, with the Summer Accelerator Program, is experiential education. And the analogy I give a lot of times about the accelerator is, you know, if we were trying to teach you to play basketball, would we, you know, just draw plays up on a whiteboard and kind of keep going through it? Or would we just say, let's just go outside and shoot hoops, you know? And we're the latter. We're the one saying, let's go shoot hoops, because for us, it's not about, you know, making, you know, a business plan or a PowerPoint, even though we do PowerPoints. You know, it's about actually moving your business forward. And so, like as an example, each team actually comes up with their own set of metrics at the beginning. And those are things that are tracked week to week. So, so maybe you're doing a consumer app and you just want to get the first 100 people to start doing something with it, you know, or maybe you're building, you know, an enterprise software company and you're looking to get one client to start paying for it, you know? So those metrics can vary really differently between companies. But for us, it's more of how are we sort of, you know, building up the entrepreneurial community at UCLA, both with undergrads, grads, alum, all the groups we mentioned earlier. And then also, you know, seeing what happens to those companies, you know, and it varies, you know, obviously, if you look at companies that were in the first batch 10 years ago, you know, there's less of those around versus ones who were in it just this past year. And so we do measure those things. You know, there are things that we look at, like, did they go on? Did some of them get funding rounds? You know, did they get accepted? Like we've had companies go into, if you're kind of looking at more like the venture funded, that kind of space, we've had a couple of companies go into Y Combinator. We've had companies go into Techstars. We've had them go into things like Amplify here in Los Angeles. So So there's definitely a bunch of different ways that we look at it. And then we also survey every few weeks, and we'll see how we're doing. And so, you know, we know that that's part of it. We know that's how we're going to improve. And, you know, we're constantly doing that throughout the program and, you know, and at the end. All right. Well, I don't know, I'll give it one last chance here. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. Well, so as I said, the application is up, it's live. You can go to startupucla.com/apply and you'll see much more detail about it there. As Deanna mentioned, we'd love to connect with you to do venture consulting, and there's going to be stuff emailed to you if you are here on this on this Zoom, and hopefully opportunities before April 4th to connect with someone from our team. But I really want to thank you for showing up, for asking some interesting questions. You know, it's not uncommon for us to have people tell us that this Summer Accelerator program was the best thing they ever did at UCLA or after UCLA. So, so I don't want to completely oversell it, but it is a really special program that we've worked really hard on to evolve over time. We're really proud of it, and we feel like we can really help. So, so you know, but it only works if you come to the table, because you know we're here to really accelerate your business, not ours. So so anyway, but thank you so much for your time, and I'll turn it over to Deanna.
Great. Thank you so much, Robert. I just wanted to encourage you all, you know, to go ahead and do application for the Summer Accelerator if it's right for you. But we also have another opportunity, the Barry Eggers Seed Prize application that's open, and it's going to close on the same day as the Summer Accelerator application closes on April 4th. And, you know, the goal is if you get selected to be invited to pitch for the Eggers Seed Prize and the Summer Accelerator, you'll actually only be doing one pitch, and we'll evaluate you for both programs if you've been invited for both programs. So just want to give you a heads up on that. You know, the applications are very similar, so throw your hat in for the Eggers Seed Prize as well.
Yeah, and that's also, I mean, not only like money, but also Barry Eggers is founding partner of Lightspeed. Just an awesome person to connect with, and you know, really a great opportunity to connect, you know, with a really influential, significant person, but also a really genuine guy. So would highly encourage you to apply for that too. All right. All right, well, great. Well, I'll stick around for a few more minutes if anyone decides they want to stay on here or whatnot. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing your application.